السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So inshallah this week we are going to talk about going against the stream. So let me give you a little bit of context. Then before we dive into the text, I would like to take your opinion about how to behave. So today's discussion is about, so we are living in a society for sure, and this society has its own way of living. Like there is a mainstream, main current, if you like. People appreciate you or think that you're a good guy if you abide by these rules. Sometimes they are good, sometimes, or many of the times it's not good, and we can talk about what good is. But what would you do in such a setup? For example, let's say, let's be more concrete. In today's society, you, for instance, very, maybe a close by example. You are going into a, somebody is dead. Maybe somebody's father is dead. And you went there for like the ceremony. But you know that death is a topic that shouldn't be discussed in regular times. So it's a taboo. It's no good to talk about death. But even in a setup in which somebody's father has passed away and you go there to give your condolences, what would you do? Because even in that setup, the current society has a certain way of behaving. You might be thinking that death is not the end, but it's just the beginning of a new life. But if you speak as such, people will frown at you. They will say, well, come on, like death is the end. Once I am there, there's no death. Once death is there, I'm not there. So that's it. Just accept it as it is. Why are you trying to sugarcoat it? And then people will just turn their eyes as you are speaking, if you are going to speak. But maybe you will even choose not to speak at all. You will go with the current and say that, oh, may his soul rest in peace. So yeah, keep going with the life. Life goes on. You cannot die with a dead person. You have a long life in front of you. Just try to make your best. And if you need help, give me a call so that we can do some chit chat and you forget about your loss. I guess this is one example that you could behave in a certain way, but you are going to be pushed back if you do so. Any other example, if you have any real examples from your lives that you feel like you're being pushed in a direction that you don't want to go there, but it's challenging to go against the current. If you can increase the examples, I guess the discussion is going to be more lively. I'm looking at hands. Okay, so Aisha Nur says, talking about something as simple as the weather. Would you like to open up this example? She says, the weather is terrible. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, even on matters like the weather, when you're in an elevator with someone, or you're just talking with someone and the weather comes up, and let's say it's raining outside, they say, oh, you know, it's terrible weather. I hope uh, the weekend's not like this, or you know, there was a terrible storm. I don't know, just these terminologies in which rainy, snowy, depending on what kind of snowy, of course, weathers are labeled as bad. And I mean, it's just awkward to say in that moment, well, you know, it's not terrible, or I wouldn't define it as terrible just because it's not what I expected. Um, and I guess, you know, the example you gave about the funeral is apt as well. That even in context of death, that it's awkward because, one, if your thoughts are not solicited, I for myself, I don't feel comfortable giving my genuine thoughts on a matter like death or what comes, you know, existence after death if they're not solicited. And more often than not, if you do start talking about, let's say, and again, the example of death, existence after, because it's portrayed as, you know, wish fulfillment, it's as though you're casting, you're not taking the emotions of the person across from you seriously enough. Like, come on, they're crying, they're upset because their so and so's dead, and you're saying, oh well, don't worry, or, you know, that this isn't the end. It's almost as if you're invalidating the feelings and the grief that they undergo. So I mean, that was a little all over the place, but you know, those are some situations that, like my thoughts on this matter. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Yeah, very beautiful example about the weather. The reason that actually I started with the funeral example is right before this discussion, I attended a sort of a funeral. So this is why this example was fresh. I just get out of this example myself half an hour ago. So I felt like, actually, my friend whose father has passed away said, would you like to read Quran to us? I said, yeah, sure. I read Quran and I tried to give some sort of, just I said, can I give a few translation of the verses that I recited? But even when I was speaking there, I felt awkward in terms of some of the eyes. I mean, many of the people were more, let's say, at the recipient end. But I felt as if some of the eyes were saying, come on, what are you talking about in here? So in such a situation, for example, how shall I act? Because this is a question, maybe, shall I choose to really recite Quran in such an environment, or speak about what the verse is saying? Let's put it this way, because reciting Quran is also within a Muslim setup, it's more like a ritual. I mean, ritual generally not very accompanied with meaning in many of the cases. But doing such a ritual, because especially, let's say, reading Surah Yasin after death is a reminder for the alive. So also talking about what it means. So it makes me uncomfortable, to say the least, because do I look like a weirdo in here? We are doing this in a university campus, and people joining this gathering is, yeah, there are professionals or people in the higher education. So how am I going to look like if I talk about life after death in front of these people? I don't want to look bad. Yeah, I can keep my beliefs personally. So these are the sort of thoughts that comes. But I guess one option is to keep my belief to myself, but still don't show it to outside, but from inside, leave your belief. I guess this is one option. The other option is, maybe most of the time that I may fall prey to, is I go with the current also, because although from inside I am pushing so hard to think or believe the other way around, the current is coming so strong, like it happens by itself. it just rains, as you were saying, or it's death. People simply die. Uh, like once aging is inevitable because of such and such protein, and we cannot reverse this. So we are dying, that's simple. Why are you coming up with a story of there must be a life after death because this book says so? So as if everybody is bringing sort of an evidence, or they claim it to be so, against what I feel like I am convinced, or what I think like I'm convinced. So each and every counter argument is also pushing me back, not even allowing me to live with my conviction within myself. So what would I do? What shall I do in this case? Shall I go with the current? Shall I keep silent from inside, but live what I have, live with it? Or shall I swim against this current? But what does it mean to swim against this current? I am also being vocal, saying that no, this way of thinking is wrong. Actually, there is a life after death. It's not simply you die and that's end. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me, and I believe it doesn't make sense to you also. So consider what I am saying, and then offer my perspective to that person. The third one seems to be even tougher. Why do you think it's tougher? In the norms of today's society, telling someone that my way of thinking is right, your way of thinking is wrong. Is this something that you can do today easily? What do you think about this part of the story? Or would you say that, well, yeah, yours is a thought, here's an alternative thought. I guess these are different shades if I was able to communicate it properly. You can say that this way of thinking, like in the example of life after death, no, it has to be this way. There's no other way around. There is life after death. There must be life after death. This is one way to go with it. Another way is, well, I feel like there must be life after death. But yeah, if you are thinking the other way around, fine, that's fine with you. Just this is one option out of many options out there. So how would you feel? Would you feel comfortable telling someone that they are wrong according to the norms of today's society? So it feels like it's rude, right? Or people will say, just like, let's coexist. Everybody is right in their own accord. Yeah, this is just another idea, life after death. Don't make it too big anyways. Or yeah, somebody is thinking that it happens by itself or by natural laws, and you are thinking that it happens because there must be some absolute source of existence. You go a little bit more complicated and philosophical. Some other says, yeah, God creates it. That's simple. Are they, how shall I feel about it? Are they just like equally valid, or just some possible explanations for this? And if it works for you, go with it. This one works for me, so I go with it. So I don't feel any sort of a urge in me to tell you anything about what is more proper. So if I was able to explain it, my point is definitely there is this current, the stream in the society, and how am I going to take a stand in against this current? Am I going to flow with it? Am I going to try to stop there? Or am I going to go in the reverse direction, which also means I am pushing the current in the reverse direction? I'm going to interfere with some people as I swim in the reverse direction. So as we look for an example, a prophetic example for that, and actually all of the prophets are pretty much examples of that. They are living in a society in which people are going in a certain direction, and those prophets come and tell them that the path you're taking is not a proper path. It's a wrong path, actually. So Atik is asking a question there. I will appreciate if Atik, we can hear your beautiful voice, your question from your own voice.
Okay, sure. So my question was, do we need to convince everyone of what we believe to be true? And I guess this was in response to, the examples you were giving of, like, do we push back against, the current, or do we, defend ourselves to someone? I, I personally feel like that's like, in special circumstances, like maybe I would feel obligated, or I wouldn't feel like against, discussing this type of my beliefs with someone. But I don't think with regular people in a regular circumstance I would see the need to do that.
Thank you. So yes, I guess, do we need to do, or in your question, since you're also stating everyone, convincing everyone. So conviction is another matter, I am pretty sure, because in the question you say, do we need to convince everyone? So conviction is a choice, but reminding of someone is another thing. I can talk to you about what I think is to be true, but you will choose to be convinced or to reject. I guess when it comes to convincing someone, yeah, it is beyond my reach anyways. So no doubt about this part. We cannot, actually. We should not try to convince anyone. In terms of trying to, as a force their free will. This is not what we can do anyways. And even in the Quran, the Creator warns Messenger against this. You are not a لست عليهم بمسيطر. You are not a, what is it? You cannot force them. So it's a very bad translation, but you cannot force them. You are just a reminder for them, God says to his messenger. But even this reminder part of it, where do I find myself in that picture? Do I feel like, because there needs to be a motivation for reminding someone. Am I in the first place feeling secure in what I am convinced? Second, do I see the need to remind this other person about it? Do I feel like it? So I guess this is, and again, it's not about just convincing, but reminding. Do I feel like it? So yeah, in general, messengers have been doing such a thing. And in Quran, repetitively, when talks about messengers and their people, the Creator reports that they say, we found our fathers to be believing like that. Are you going to come against what your forefathers has done? So this is how they challenged their messenger, as the messenger invited them to truth. So they pushed back, but messengers didn't. So they were quite determined in terms of keeping the reminder. They didn't give up. And a few weeks back, we discussed the story of Jonah, where he was upset with his people and he left. And his story was, he was reminded of his neediness, his impotence, and then he turned back to remind his people. So this theme is a very repetitive theme in the Quran. So in this day and age, today, how am I supposed to take a stand? This would be our discussion today, inshallah. So the example we have picked is from Surah Al-Safat. It is 37th chapter of Quran, and we will study verses from 85 to 99. I didn't take verses 83 and 84. Maybe I should have. This part is talking about Prophet Ibrahim, and says he came to his Lord with a clear heart. And from there on, I am picking on. First, I will read the Arabic, then we will talk about the translation. إذ قال لأبيه وقومه ماذا تعبدون أئفكا آلهة دون الله تريدون فما ظنكم برب العالمين فنظر نظرة في النجوم فقال إني سقيم فتولوا عنه مدبرين فراغ إلى آلهتهم فقال ألا تأكلون ما لكم لا تنطقون فراغ عليهم ضربا باليمين فأقبل إليه يزفون قال أتعبدون ما تنحتون وإلى الله sorry. I guess there was a copy-paste issue here. I need to read it from, sorry for that glitch. This is verse number 94. فأقبل إليه يزفون قال تعبدون ما تنحتون والله خلقكم وما تعملون قالوا ابن له بنيانا فألقوه في الجحيم فأرادوا به كيدا فجعلناهم الأسفلين. So anybody wants to read the translation? Atiq, would you like to help me with the translation?
Sure. Bismillah. And thus spoke to his father and his people, what is it that you worship? Do you want to bow down before a lie, before deities other than God? What then do you think of the sustainer of all the worlds? Then he cast a glance at the stars and said, verily, I am sick at heart. And at that they turned their backs on him and went away. Thereupon he approached their gods stealthily and said, what? Do you not eat of the offerings placed before you? What is amiss with you that you do not speak? And then he fell upon them, smiting them with his right hand. But then the others came towards him hurriedly and accused him of his deed. He answered, do you worship something that you yourselves have carved, the while it is God who has created you and all your handiwork? They exclaimed, build a pyre for him and cast him into the blazing fire. But whereas they sought to do evil to him, we frustrated their designs and thus brought them low.
Jazakallah khair. So Ibrahim alayhi salam is quite challenging his people here. So what do you see here? What is the pattern that he is taking, the way he challenges? So he directly confronts them. What is it that you worship? Do you want to bow down a lie? If can alihatan dun Allah turidun. So if in here is like you are telling lies about someone. So somebody didn't do something, but you are saying that no, he did this, she did this. So he says, are you lying about the God? So you are saying someone is God, although that thing is not God. And he is using this word as if you are accusing a person about something bad, that they themselves didn't do it. They wouldn't be happy about being accused about this, but still you're doing it. So he is putting those people into a position that by ascribing godness to the things themselves, this is what you are doing actually. You are as if like in another place that this word ifk is being used is when Aisha radiallahu anha was accused with misbehavior. So accusing a woman of something that she didn't do is such a ugly act. And Ibrahim is saying that this is what you are doing. You are ascribing godness to the things which they themselves wouldn't accept such a claim. Are you aware of the ugliness of your actions? He is confronting them so directly, because just imagine they are thinking that these are the things and this is how they behave, as if it's a very appropriate description of the things themselves. I guess an example for that would be how we look at quote unquote scientifically in the existence. We feel like a world turns around itself, or it rains because water evaporates and then it hits this cold air and then it comes down again. So all happens by itself. Now, as if I am ascribing godness to all these entities, which they themselves wouldn't accept in the first place. If I keep asking to them, would you really? And Ibrahim alayhi salam is being so straight to those people and saying that what you're doing is accusing things of which they would deny, they wouldn't like in the first place. What then do you think of the sustainer of all the worlds? So what do you really think? What is your opinion about the sustainer of all the worlds? So do you feel like, do you have such a notion in the first place? Because in my understanding in today's world, as if everything is governing itself and then the whole system is being governed by this chaos. So the order is coming out of this chaos. And then Ibrahim alayhi salam comes and challenges me that, don't you see that the sustainership, all these systems, all this order that you observe is being maintained by a single source? How come that you attribute it to multiple sources? So, and it goes on like this, to the extent that he goes and in verse number 91 and 92, he approaches their gods and he says, what, do you not eat? And why don't you talk? So what sort of an attitude is that for the gods or statues in this case? So he goes to their lords and he takes such an attitude. He quite challenges them. So in today, shall I do such a thing? Or if I shall, how would I do such a thing? What do you think? And if it helps, you can think of a challenge in your own personal life that the society pushes you in the other direction, and maybe within yourself still you might be having such a fight. So how are you going to do this fight, even within yourself? I can give another example as we are having this conversation with my wife time to time. So her friends, like college students from Turkey, and they are coming from a religious background, and they are covering their heads like hijabis, but they are studying in a top university in Turkey, in which the norms are quite like America, unlike Turkey. Like if you go to, she says, like the subway stations for that campus is way different. People wear quite Western, and they are feeling as if like they are doing some crime by just covering their heads, because people are not covering like 75% of their body anyways, but you are covering even your head. So even if you don't speak anything, your stand by just covering your head says something. So I guess constantly there's this conversation within themselves. Are we on the right path? Like while everybody else goes in the other direction, what are we doing? So I guess this is a quite big of a challenge, like for, I guess, Muslim males, since we feel more comfortable, we are not obligated, we feel, to cover our heads or anything. Yeah, if you look at my outfits, I'm quite, like, if anybody looks from outside, I don't think there's any reason for them to know my stand in the society. I get away with it. Unless I open my mouth, I'm comfortable. But for my wife, she's not like that. She is covering her head. And in that society, she needs to, like, even as she steps to the street, it is like, yeah, she is different. So how shall she, for example, feel comfortable from inside? Because we are looking for comfort. You don't want to be this singled out person, the wrong person, because everybody with their eyes are already telling you that you are wrong. I mean, even if they smile to you, you know what it means deep down. Yeah, people are politically correct, but they're maybe looking especially at my wife when I'm right next to her. Oh, look at this poor woman. Her husband is oppressing her. This is why she's covering her head. So how would you get out of this issue? Would you simply say, okay, just don't hear them? Or even within yourself, how would you solve that problem? And looking at the name list, I am seeing 3 names who are covering their heads, and I am seeing 3 other names who are possibly forcing their wives to cover their heads. So any opinion? What do you get from Ibrahim alayhi salam's stand in here in terms of how to respond? Or in his example, the verses that we read, he goes and as if mocks gods of the society, says that, don't you talk, don't you eat? So how do we solve the issue for our very practical problem, Brother Birkan?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the great intro and the initial comments. So one thing, like I'm a little bit more interested in how these verses are related to myself, what happens within myself. Since it's in Quran and I'm studying Quran, it must be speaking to me. And so then the question is, who are these people that I am fighting against? Who are the, or what is these? What are these? The deities, the false lie deities, the gods that these verses are talking about. So the verses, all these verses, they talk about a conflict, right? There's one part of me, or one idea maybe, one thing about me, which says, what I see there, what I read there, or what I hear is wrong. It doesn't make sense. But another part of me which insists on worshiping these false idols, And Quran says there is this conflict between the two. And also kind of at the very end, it seems like the Quran kind of, keeps its promise and give me some guidance. This is the promise of Quran, right? It's a guidance for those who believe, or so those who muttaqin. So it's a good news, it's a guidance. And it seems even within this, chunk of story, Quran keeps its promise and gives me some guidance, it seems. But before getting the guidance, I guess the important part is identifying the problem that I need guidance. And it seems like it's about a conflict that I, experience. But what conflict? Like, I'm a believer, and I do not, worship false gods. And when somebody comes with an idea of, worshiping a false god, I don't have any conflict. I'm certain that, this is wrong, at least the way I think, maybe consciously. But Quran says, no, this is not true. I'm sorry. You call yourself believer. Like most of the parts, the rest of the parts in the Quran, those who claim to be believing, do you think, we have such verses? Quran says, no, like this is not true. You have a conflict. You might be saying that, if you believe in something, but you also have this part in you which says, there are also other gods. Why don't you consider them? So belief, no matter what its object is, so believe in God, believe in X, Y, whatever. A belief, for me, it seems, it's just an option. I have this belief, I believe in God, I believe in hereafter, or I believe that the raining is good, or even snow, even thunderstorm is good. I have such belief. But also I think deep inside that this is just an option to follow. Like I'm following this specific option, other people, or in other circumstances, I might have believed something else. And this is completely normal. It is normal that I have a conflict in me, one part saying that the truth is that, the other part saying that, no, truth is not that. And I think that this is normal. There are also other gods as well. But Quran says this is not the way it should be. You should be, I'm talking about the inside, you should be fighting against false gods, false ideas, false idols. Do not accept them. Do not see them as just yet another option. Fight against them. What does it mean? Be certain to yourself, be convinced, so that you can destroy them. If you cannot destroy them within you, that means you are not there yet. And this is most of the time what happens with me. I think I believe in something, but whenever an alternative idea comes to my mind, I'm, start shaking. Oh, is it so? The certainty, it's not with me yet. So Quran says, in such situations, get the certainty, reach the certainty. Otherwise, you are not on the right path. I guess this is all for now. Jazakallah khair.
Yeah. Jazakallah khair. So as I was listening to you, I felt like, for instance, like since I was hearing your daughter's beautiful voice from background, even imagining something bad happening to our kids, it's so unbearable. Like we feel like as if I cannot do without her. So do I feel the same with my conviction about hereafter? Am I so sure, like I am so sure that I love my daughter? Am I so sure that there must exist a hereafter and it cannot be otherwise? It's not possible. So I guess from within, if I'm so much convinced, at least this will make me firm enough to not go with the flow. As the flow pushes me, I would say, no, I am sure that this is the case. So I guess this is at least the first step to take from within myself. And in here, Ibrahim alayhi salam is challenging those idols and smashing them. So then, as Brother Birkan was saying, as I have those alternative ideas coming to me, am I feeling obliged to smash them? Because the two of them do not live together. Like the idea of hereafter and non-existence of hereafter, or, well, maybe we will come back to this world again, the same world, like reincarnation. This also works fine for me. Does it really work fine for you? I guess this is a question. Or might be, but mine is better. How do I feel about it? So I guess smashing the other idols is because no other explanation, at least at the theoretical level for sure, doesn't survive. Like nothing is going hand in hand with Tawheed. Like ascribing partners to the creator is not really working out. But in my own understanding, am I so certain? I guess this is what I understand from Brother Birkan's point. Because there's this political correctness, which is as if we are saying that, yeah, it's correct. Mine is also correct, but theirs is might be correct. So I'm not bothered by it. If I am as such, then yeah, I am more inclined to go with the flow in the future. Then there's also something interesting going on in here when Ibrahim Sam says in verse number 95. He says, قَالَ أَتَعْبُدُونَ مَا تَنْحِتُونَ. Do you worship something that you yourselves have carved? And he adds, وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. The while it is God who has created you and all your handiwork. So what do you think about this? Do I worship something that I myself carve? What would be a practical example for that? What sort of statues do we carve with our hands and then we worship it? Brother Birkan?
Jazakallah khairan again. So one practical example, I was today reading a book to prepare a presentation. Anyway, the author is great, the book is great, but there are certain things that author says don't make any sense, like no sense at all. But still, it's a great author. It's like so famous that there's no chance that I can convince anyone that what he says doesn't make sense, and what I say actually makes sense. So there's such an imbalance between my status and the author's status. So what happens, of course, I get annoyed, and all that happens just in my mind. myself. There's my wife even or daughter is not in the room. Okay, so I'm alone, but I'm having this conflict going against the stream for a moment, as you would say, but then I'm drowned underwater in the water. So what happens there? Why am I drowned? Why I'm getting, and I'm feeling annoyed and feeling that there's no option, there's no way to tell the the right version or the truth. And Quran says, do you know what, Virkan, you actually worship something that you have carved. The status that you are talking about, status of the author, status of you, is something that you have carved. You feel annoyed because you don't want to go against something that you have carved. Fame, status, luxury, the wealth, whatever. You don't want to take this author, on the opposite side, or talk about this to anyone because of all these false idols that you believe in. You believe in things that you carved. Again, the example is status in the society. And in order to protect it, which Quran beautifully describes, that they cannot even eat or they cannot even speak, meaning they cannot harm you nor benefit you. Actually, you have to feed or protect them. You have to build them, and then you have to take care of them. All these the false idols that we carved, they exist as much as we support them, as much as we believe in them. So anyway, the Quran, in Quran, my God, Creator says, this is your problem, Birkan. You believe in things that you have carved with your own hands. And that's the reason that you cannot go against the stream. What keeps you is what you have carved. Jazakallah.
So then being intimidated by those titles or the status of that person, which makes me keep silent, or sometimes it is the numbers. So like my vice friends, they are just a few people in that whole campus which are with their stand saying that we don't believe in what you guys are enforcing us to believe in. With their stand, they are those people who are saying that, but I might be getting intimidated and feeling weak. The numbers are now as if something that has influence on me, being outnumbered, although Ibrahim was the only individual in that society, but he was not really taking numbers to do anything to himself. And so Muhammad Said, I would like to start with you. You raised your hand first, then Aisha.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, everybody. Your initial question reminded me, excuse me, reminded me of an experience I have today, and I'm really pleased with that experience. I'm not going to complain about it. So this is like the question that we ask. We are asked, "How are you?" Now I'm in Turkey. It's nasılsın, and the answer follows, "I'm fine." And if you are here, it's usually follows with Alhamdulillah. everything is fine, the business is good, the school is good, the kids are fine. It's basically these answers are as they imply. It's my goodness is coming from them. It's coming from the business or whatever it is. It makes me good. It's the source of goodness. And then it continues, Alhamdulillah, and it doesn't fit into the picture, that Alhamdulillah. So that's why it's kind of, it triggers another question in me. How can we feel good, really? How can we reach the goodness? Since we are asking each other, how are you? Since we are concerned with our well-being, so let's really kind of dive into this question and question this question, what we are seeking for, and how can we reach the goodness that we are yearning for. I mean, asking this question is really going against the stream, like questioning the question of how are you? It's and trying to open it up, what we are seeking for. It uh, initially, for some people and for myself too, it's like, what are you doing? Is it really it, as you said, it feels weird, like, how are you? And say good, thanks for asking, continue. But so when you deal with this question, you realize that the goodness that I am seeking for basically is related to well-being of everything about me, about my future, about my past, the reality of my existence, which includes sickness and death, as you said, and um, getting old, and having the risk of losing, whatever. All of them are included in this reality. And if I find a way to um, see meaning in all these possibilities of life, then I can really feel good, and I can really say, um, great, I'm very thankful about everything in my life, because they all feel meaningful to me. And that's the only condition that I can really, uh, without being some kind of, without following the stream, by saying, I'm fine. Genuinely, I can say, I am. I feel grateful about everything in this life, because nothing is, as the verse 96 beautifully puts, that everything in my life is under the control of the creator of the universe. The things themselves are not the source of the goodness. uh, the owner of the universe is the source of the goodness. That's why I feel great. So I wanted to just kind of tie it up and connect to your initial question with this verse 96, if I could make it. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. So the things that I am worried about are the things that the creator is creating them, although I think that I make them. So what is it that really shall I be worried about? Because I shall be worried about if to whatever worry means in this context, about the creator of all the things. Even the things that I think I am doing are being created by him. So just directing all my thought to a true source, which is going to make me free from all my worries. Jazakallah khair. Yes, Sister Aisha.
Assalamu alaikum. I had a comment to make. So you asked, would there be any difference if you believed in a hereafter or not? And I had a comment to make to that, and I think I can also come to the verse that we just read about worshiping something they have carved, because I think they're very aligned with each other. So the reason I think that a hereafter is necessary in my current state of mind is, if there was no hereafter, then there wouldn't be a purpose to this life. There wouldn't be a purpose to you waking up tomorrow and going to work and then coming back and then spending time with your family, or just, I don't know, doing anything else. There wouldn't be purpose to even eating to survive another day, or drinking water, or there wouldn't be a purpose to having like a dark, gloomy day versus having a nice and happy day. And the reason I say this because, as Brother Muhammad Said was saying, is it's the meaning in the things that fulfills you. It's what makes you happy. It's what you're searching for, is for things to be meaningful for you. And for things to be meaningful in this temporary world that we live in, this temporary life that we're given, and complete, like we're in complete transience at every moment. For things to be meaningful, there needs to be a hereafter that they point to, something that they point to that will not just be temporary or transient. And the way we look at this world, when we see that there are qualities and names of our creator, and that we recognize those names, and we are able to get closer to this creator and communicate with him, and form a relationship, and become like abs of him. When you have such a thought process and such a belief, then the things that you do, they look somewhere else. It's not just, you don't do things in and of themselves, they look somewhere else. And so you need a hereafter, because when, let's say tomorrow I fail at something in my and like my something goes terribly wrong in my workplace, I can find that there might this I can find things in it which look to something else, which look to like the hereafter, which look to qualities of my creator, which look to an education that I'm going through. Maybe there's like an education that my creator is putting me through when I go through such events. So there needs to be a hereafter for that to be true. If there was no hereafter, then none of those would have meaning, and everything would just be, yeah, you suffered pain and that's it. You're unlucky, too bad. Um, that's why a hereafter is like very necessary, just for my state of mind. And coming to the question of like the verse that says you worship things that you have carved, and similar to what has been said, it's that uh, in our lives, I mean, I think this is a very beautiful verse, by the way. Like, these you worship things that you carve, but while God is the one who has created you and all your handiwork, it's because in this life, we're given this life, we're given this universe, and we want to do the things our way. We want to select, okay, my purpose in life is to have the fastest car and the biggest house and to be very famous, and this is what good is, this is what the purpose of my life is, and I select that path for myself. This is a life that I'm carving for myself. I completely forget, or I completely ignore what the purpose of this existence is, why I've been created. So then the next day when something happens and I can't get my car or my house or anything else that you really want, then you think, oh, your life is ruined. But this is not, yeah, the thing you carved is ruined, but maybe the actual purpose of the life is not ruined, and maybe you're worshiping the wrong thing, and you need to actually see who the true owner of your life is, and what you need to be worshiping is like, you need to find what the correct thing you should be worshiping is. And yeah, those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. Yes. And at the end, verse number 97. So he is being responded with, build a building, قَالُوا ابْنُوا لَهُ بُنْيَانًا, so build a building for him. and cast him into a blazing fire. Like, this is again the response. Ibrahim was challenging them, saying that you are worshipping things that you carved with your own hands, as if this is what we rely on in the first place. We are very much into building things. We carve them with our own hands and then we worship them. And we think this as our strength, as if we create things, in a sense, carving them, if you would like to take the word create. We said we do it, but then we are becoming subjugated to the things that we built. And then still, when somebody comes and tells us how low we are, how pitiful that we are doing something that doesn't make any sense, still we are as if saying that, no, I'm going to come up with another building. I'm going to build up something, a huge fire or a building to which I will throw you into a blazing fire from there. So I think this is how it is happening, at least when it comes to my fears also. Like, there's this, let's say, from inside I am seeing how it doesn't make sense for such some ideologies out there. But then there's this whisper, if you like, because they say, well, so far we couldn't figure out the purpose of this existence, or we couldn't explain or prove how life happens, but we are working hard on it. Our scientists are building up buildings, and eventually we are going to prove that life just happens by itself. In the lab, we are going to prove that. And actually, we are going to create life one day. Maybe not today, but one day this will happen. So still, it's being projected that we are going to make another building, and this building is going to burn you for good. But the creator is, and this is actually our fears also, or the way Brother Birkan put it, maybe it is that I am being intimidated by some other building which is already made out there, somebody's title. So this person built up a career, is a well-respected scientist, and now he says God does not exist, or he says there's no afterlife. Like, this person is just a physicist, but he makes such a statement. He says there's no God, although it has nothing to do with that person's expertise. Like, his title was about something else, but he makes this bold claim about something that he has no clue about, really. But how do I feel about it? I am as if feeling smashed under that this building that that person he himself carved with. And also in my perception, I as if carved, or I bought into the idea that such a title is, no matter what that person says, it's going to be true. It must be true because this guy is having the title of such and such. So then I am being just smashed under the weight of that person's title, which I put some value in there. But then Ibrahim alayhi salam comes up with this formula, says that you are worshipping something that you carved with your hands, although you yourself and the things that you supposedly are doing by your hands are being created, everything. So what sort of a delusion are you in? Brother Rikan?
Okay. Related to the last point that you made, so it's interesting, like again, as you said, they are trying to destroy the ideology or idea or the person who goes against them through building something by their hands, again, like putting a fire which they build. And against that, Quran puts the God's help or God's guidance, or maybe revelation. So what people build versus the revelation, the help of God or speech of God. They are put against each other. That's again interesting reminder to myself, because it seems I also do the same thing. So when I encounter an idea that act or try to destroy me, let's say, what I do, I build a fire so that I will burn the idea on the opposite side. But I build a fire. How I do that? I say I should study all these sciences. I should study all these philosophies. I should study X. I should study Y. I should be so good in something. Then I will prove them that they are wrong. I will put a fire so big that I will be so famous, that I will be so good in argument making. I will be so good in language, whatever, that my fire will be so big that it will burn them down. But Quran puts as a solution instead God's help, God's plan, God's speech. Meaning, when I need something, when I need guidance, when I'm in a war within myself, guidance will come from revelation, come from God. I should seek for answers not in other books. A book is just a representation of fire now. I shouldn't look for answer in other books that are man-made, but rather I should look for answers in the speech of the creator of everything. As Quran says, who created you and all your handiwork, whatever you experience, whatever you have around you. Don't be stupid looking for answers in all those resources that you created. They cannot speak. They cannot give you answer. They cannot give you guidance. Turn your face away from them and look to the revelation for answers. That's what I wanted to add.
And I guess also I should be conscious that whatever I will understand from the revelation, as for example, Ibrahim alayhi salam is bringing a counter argument to them. So this counter argument comes out of mouth of Ibrahim alayhi salam, but he is aware that whatever comes out of his mouth is the creation of his creator, but not his own doing. So he is, as Muhammad Said was pointing to that, he is truly saying Alhamdulillah. So anything that is praiseworthy is due to the creator. It's not my own doing. It's not my making. So this level of confidence, I guess, would make me stand against this current, this stream. And to the extent that I will be confident to speak what is right, what is wrong. Brother Atik, please go ahead.
Before we run out of time, I wanted to mention that I thought it was interesting of the relationship between Musa and his people, that he questioned them regarding their beliefs, and that they responded, or they weren't like immediately dismissive of him, as we might see with people nowadays. There's like people on the street that just have stands, or people that are on their soapboxes on a microphone yelling about something about they believe that in public, and so it seems like the relationship with Musa and his people was not immediately dismissive, that they kind of respected his status in a sense enough to have a dialogue of some sort.
Yeah, so I guess Yeah, I mean, not going out and starting to shout, maybe this is not the point, but do I feel that drive in me? How do I feel inside? Am I feeling like I cannot do it because it's just everything is true, everybody has a right? Or do I feel like I am feeling ashamed? Or do I feel like, no, I am comfortable, I am convinced, and no matter if some other person thinks that I look weird or awkward, actually, I cannot think otherwise. As for a person who doesn't have a, let's say, who didn't experience having a child, maybe they wouldn't understand why. And actually nowadays you can see many such people. They say, even myself, before marriage, I was saying, oh, no, 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 children are too much noise. I cannot stand to them. I cannot bear this. But now it's so lovely, so beautiful, something that I cannot do without. So, and I wouldn't care if a person would criticize me or say, well, look down upon me because I am spending time or with my daughter or anything of this sort. I don't really care because I'm pretty much convinced, and I would suggest people to the extent that they can, to experience such a beautiful thing. So likewise, I guess, for the truth that I am convinced that it's truth, to the extent that I am made aware that it's truth. As Ibrahim alayhi salam is demonstrating in here, because he has solid arguments for his point, and from inside he is convinced. He smashes idols from within himself, but also within the society. He is not shying away from declaring what he considers to be true. And he speaks to them in a way to convey his message the way other people would understand it. But yeah, he doesn't apparently, as we also know from the other parts of the story, he is not being afraid of being thrown into fire or being threatened by fire. And the Creator, as Brother Birkan also very beautifully put it, the Creator says, we helped him, we showed him our ways, so on and so forth. So I should be expecting guidance from my Creator. Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah. So inshallah, let's stop here for today. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. جزاك الله خير.